And off the final corner, it is SVG OMG. Hey guys, Ryan here, and I just got done watching the what was this race called? The Grant Park 220, something like that. We ended up, the race was cut a little short and then extended, but ultimately we got a fantastic winner. And yeah, let's just go right into talking about him, since I kind of teased it in the intro, which is a quick clip from the stream that I did this evening, where I was reacting to the race as it was happening. But man, SVG, Shane Van, let me get this name right, Shane Van Gisbergen. But yeah, SVG ends up going in his first NASCAR Cup Series start and absolutely just puts on a classic finish to a road course race. I mean, that looked like the road course style of old, where maybe you don't have the best start to your day and you just quietly kind of march your way through the field, avoid the wreck when it happens, and find yourself in position to win. And that is precisely what Shane ended up doing here tonight. So for those of you guys who don't know, Shane is a V8 supercar driver from who races in Australia. He's from New Zealand, but yeah, so he was coming over as part of the Project 91 thing with Trackhouse Racing. Ends up being the first driver from that project to actually win for Trackhouse, and that now makes 2 Trackhouse wins in a row with Ross last week. So, yeah, that's who he is. For those of you guys who are wondering, who is Shane Van, who Shane is. But yeah, so that was your race winner, but there was much more to talk about in this race. First off, quick thing about the Xfinity Series race, I found it a little odd that they didn't go and take the cars out to try and do 2 parade laps to make it the official distance. I mean, even if it meant that some guys would spin out and maybe lose some track position, sure, not the best outcome, but it would have, I feel like, tied up and wrapped it in a nice little bow to make the race at least halfway. That way it felt more legit, because otherwise you kind of have the question of, okay, are they just doing whatever? Because we've also seen series go and do 2 pace laps to try and make a race official. Looking at you, Formula 1 in Spa a couple years ago. But yeah, so but honestly, all in all though, the Cup race was fantastic. You did have one wreck where the track kind of ended up playing a little bit of a factor, where Kevin Harvick ended up spinning off of a corner, off the nose of Corey LaJoie, and then Corey LaJoie spun as well. Byron had gone face first into the tires in front of them, and ultimately it ended up completely clogging the track after only a few drivers were able to sneak through. I know Tyler Reddick and SVG were part of that group that got through, but it was not a lot. And yeah, so it led to one of the later restarts. Obviously the rain is why this race was cut short originally, because of the fact that the rain was rained all day long. It ended up pushing this track, the time back to where it was very dark at the end of this race, and they couldn't really run too much later and still be able to see 10 feet in front of them. So ultimately, I like the call that NASCAR made to call the race, to shorten it by 25 laps much earlier in the day. They cut it by 25 laps that left it with 30 to go. So it was I like the fact that they timed that and actually made the adjustment before we got too deep into it and the fuel strategy kind of burnt everybody. But yeah, so that was a good thing. Obviously, you have the weather, which was unprecedented for Chicago at this time of year to be that rainy. So ultimately, I think NASCAR did pretty much the best that they could with what they had. And I think no doubt Chicago should be back, between the back and forth dive bomb battle at the end between Justin Haley, who finished second, who I will talk about the rest of the finishers here in a minute, and and Shane. You had an amazing back and forth contest, which led to ultimately some of the best road course racing I think I can remember in recent time. I mean, thinking back to like some of the battles back and forth between Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, and Marcus Ambrose at Watkins Glen. Then thinking about some of the battles between Elliott and MTJ at Watkins Glen. A lot of Watkins Glen moments, but yeah. So, man, this race though definitely deserves to come back. I know there's been some talk about, especially yesterday when the Xfinity race was not that great, that I don't know, maybe it shouldn't come back. And even I was on that pace of I don't know if this is necessarily the right track to try this at. But the Cup cars absolutely proved me wrong. The NASCAR Cup Series does belong in Chicago, and I think honestly the street course in Chicago could be a very successful project in the long run. We'll have to wait and see if it does stick around long term. I think though it's definitely deserved at least another 2 races. Now, if they wanted to add a second street course though, I would advise and I would say I don't think you'll do this. I don't think you'll end up pulling this off again. So I think pairing up with IndyCar at Detroit, Toronto, or Long Beach, or pairing up with F1 at Miami or Vegas would be my recommendation for what you do in terms of where you go from here with another street course. But real quick, I'm going to pull up the top 10 finishers here from the race, and we're going to talk about them. So we already talked about SVG quite a bit. V8 supercar driver coming over from Australia to America here to run. He did hint that he only plans on running one more season in V8 supercars, and then he would be open to a potential full-time season here. Now, do I expect him to come over and run a full season? Not really. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping he runs at least one more race this year. I've kind of said during my stream a few times that I think Charlotte Road Course would be the best place for him to make a second start. Although, honestly, with this win, I would say if Trackhouse hasn't already promised away the other road courses, maybe sign him up for all of them except for Indy, because I would want to leave Indy open for a double header. So maybe a Simon Pagenaud or someone to double up from IndyCar to NASCAR. But yeah, so enough about SVG. Now we've got Justin Haley and Chase Elliott, both kind of in a similar situation. Both mid-pack in points and both needing a win to get themselves to the playoffs. Now, Justin Haley's has been more performance-related because that 31 car, and honestly, Kaulig as a whole is underachieved. But obviously, Chase Elliott is only back there due to the performance, or due to the fact that he's missed so much time. So you had you have those two drivers who desperately needed a win, coming up just short on an alternate strategy. Ultimately, though, for Chase Elliott at least, because he's been very good and very well could point his way back to the playoffs. I think Chase Elliott finishing third here gives him a good boost of points. Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch had the Kyle and Kyle show going for 4th and 5th. Ultimately, Kyle Larson does come out on top of that one over Kyle Busch. Then you had Austin Cindric and Michael McDowell being the first couple of Fords there. Michael McDowell, great points day, comes out only 10 points behind Ty Gibbs for the final point spot. Austin Cindric, it was the first time in a long time that he really looked like a contender, and even that was on an alternate strategy too, so I don't know how much you can really kind of prop this one up, but hey, you know what? It was a good run. I just want to see more of it from Cindric, and especially I want to see more uh, on the ovals, not just the road courses. Joey Logano looked like at about the midway point in this race, he looked like he might be the guy to come up here and try and steal another first in NASCAR. First dirt win, first race at Gateway, first race at the LA Coliseum. And it looked like he was going to be the first Chicago Street Course winner for a little bit there because he got up near the front on the alternate strategy with slightly fresher tires than Haley and Elliott. But ultimately, he faded and wasn't able to do much. He ends up 8th place, which is not bad, but obviously you'd imagine that he could do better. Ty Gibbs in 9th ends up getting enough points to point his way into the playoffs as it stands right now. He is 6 points above, and I think he's about 9 points behind Bubba for the next spot, which would secure him even if we get a surprise winner, which I think we will have. I think 2 to 3 surprise winners coming down the stretch, so I think Ty Gibbs will need to pad those points. And Chris Buescher, a driver who doesn't necessarily pad points, but he did anyway with a top 10 finish. I think those were most of the notable finishers. Denny Hamlin recovered well from an accident. William Byron recovered well from the big pile up. Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell were a couple ones I wanted to mention. They were up front late on the same strategy with SVG, but ultimately both ended up spinning out and kind of taking themselves out of contention for this win, finishing in the mid to late 20s in the finishing order, and really just kind of not doing anything good for their day. Bowman had some sort of an engine go bad, which led to him finishing all the way down at the bottom of the list, the first DNF of the race, and ultimately he is now on the outside looking in terms of the points too, so he needs to rack up a lot of points here in the next few weeks because I think he's like 28 he's either 24 or 28 points out, but either way it's not looking very good for him after that one, but yeah. So that was most of the notable finishers. I already talked about how this track should be here to stay, but yeah. Just kind of closing thoughts here on the Chicago race weekend. I hope that next week is drier because today was a absolute rain fest. But all in all, I would say this was a good race. I don't think there's too many people that would disagree unless they really just don't like the idea of the Chicago street course. But yeah, ultimately, I think it was a good race, and I think it is certainly proved that it at least belongs on the schedule for the near future. Again, we'll have to wait and see if long-term future, if it sticks around. But I think this track has shown that it has the potential. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, leave a like on this video. Subscribe if you guys are new so you guys don't miss any future videos. But until next time, this has been Ryan Dyer on YouTube, and I will see you guys next video. Live stream, whatever you guys have to do with the rest of your day. Have a great day, everybody, and goodbye!